So, welcome back after the break. This was a real break, this virtual session. And now we'll begin with the fireside chat. And I thought after the break, let me talk about the origin of it. So, the idea of fireside chat, as you must be aware, started back in the 1930s when President Roosevelt spoke to people over the radio in a way that was felt warm and personal, like a conversation by the fireside. Today, we use the same spirit to create an informal, relaxed space to learn from our speaker's experience. And that relaxed and informal space is being created by our dynamic co host for the day, Dexter Wellis, our Director of Commercial Practice at ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter, who will be moderating the much anticipated fireside chat with Subash CV with the title Inner Compass Reflections on Whole Person Coaching. Uh, Subhash is the veteran coach, mentor. He's the founder of Regal Unlimited. And he wears many hats, in fact, as CXO coach, ICF mentor, an healer, an ICF MCC, SP, MCC, INSEAD leadership alumni, an MBA in marketing, and with 30 plus years of experience, including 20 in BFSI leadership. He brings real world insights to his more than 5,000 hours of coaching. He's mentored over 500 coaches and partnered with hundreds of leaders to embed coaching led cultures. So over to Dexter to take the fireside chat forward. Dexter.
Yeah, thank you. And Subash, welcome to the Fireside Chat. Um, we're going to have a gentle fire, not a roaring fire. We've had roaring fires in the first two sessions. So this is going to be a lovely, warming, gentle fire. And we're really looking forward to this. I just want to add a few more things about Subash people may not know. He calls himself a dog parent, and very humbly he says he's a Carnatic vocal student, and I guess it's much more than that. Besides being a yoga practitioner. So how wonderful to have you here. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Dexter, for all the back-end work. Thanks to the chapter leaders for giving me this opportunity. By the way, I was in Mumbai yesterday and day before yesterday. I was wondering how lovely it should have been to do this physical, right? Face to face. But yeah, some other time. Great to see you here, Chitra. Yeah. Over to you, Dexter.
So there are people who already are commenting about what they know about you because you're such a well-known and popular person in our chapter, and you've touched already so many lives. So we're really privileged to have you. The privilege is ours, actually. And we would like to acknowledge your presence over here with us.
Thank you.
So let's start the ball rolling. And just to set the context about this, not all over again, but particularly for our conversation, is what would whole person coaching mean to you, Subash? And why is it becoming, increasingly relevant in today's coaching landscape? If you can share your thoughts about that.
So a couple of pointers, like what Sandeep said, 2 decades of corporate experience. My personal experience is it was all aimed at making me better at work, right? I mean, that's typically this all the corporate training that we are subjected to. Nobody cared for our personal potential, and least of all me myself, because I was not really focusing on that. Coaching also is unfortunately to some extent is increasingly looking at performance, right? I think it's more in this part of the world, I hope, because we are still evolving at the marketplace. While coaching goes back to 10-15,000 years in India, but the ICF coaching and the framework that we practice is relatively new to this part of the world. So there is an extra element of focus on ROI and outcome based or performance based. We'll be reducing the potential of professional coaching to mere transactional coaching when we do that. And for me, transactional coaching is an oxymoron. There is nothing like, if it is coaching, then it has to be at least mildly transformational. It cannot be transactional. When I say transactional, is you just identify those SMART goals, SMART. In some cases, we might just add those acronyms, pure and clear, from Sir John Whitmore's book. But you are still tactically looking at some specific measurable outcomes and not going beyond the behavior and the potential of the client. I know a lot of it can be driven by the stakeholders, including the coaches themselves. But we, as a coach, we have a responsibility to look at the potential, right? That's what makes it whole person coaching more relevant now than perhaps earlier. We hosted Janet Harvey recently. So I asked Janet, with your 30 years of experience and with, you have a vision. I mean, she's pretty much the keynote speaker at every major event. So, including the one coming up in Riyadh next month. So I asked her, how does she look at it? So she said, there is always, it's like a wave-like formation. So perhaps, you reach a high, then maybe there is a dip. We are perhaps seeing that dip. Last point, and as a mentor for coaches, another cause of worry is also, we are culturally aligned to certifications, right? I mean, I think in at least here, we are somebody who want grades and want to clear exams and get certificate. But that is just a pit stop in our journey as a coach. Professional coaching that we are going to do is much beyond the exam and the questions that are there in the exam. So reducing it to just certification and exam, because there are programs now that are for exam preparation, right? So my view is, if you need an additional tuition for exam preparation of ICF, then what has been your journey so far? When ICF says your journey is your exam preparation, it is there in their slide actually. Yeah. So these are some of the things that makes it important that we step back collectively and look at bringing the focus back into the whole person coaching. And thanks to the chapter for bringing such a powerful topic that is so very relevant. Back to you.
Thanks so much. Yes, that is really interesting. I love what you're saying, that your journey is the exam. But we've again become, I think, quite competitive, and we've become very transactional instead of transformational, even within ourselves.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad you picked on that. So the question that would automatically flow from here is that how does practicing, whole person coaching help a coach really and truly embody the coaching mindset, which we talk about as a core competency, beyond techniques?
So the first reflection on that is uh, the whole training, mentoring, assignments, exam is just the basic step to get us exposed to the framework of coaching. Uh, it takes years for us to kind of really get to the root of the competency framework. We need to be aware of that. And even after getting the credential, there is a process of learning, unlearning that we should be comfortable with, especially in some of the situations that the client can come up with. So the first one is uh, accepting that it's a journey to your full potential as a coach, or to my full potential as a coach, which is pretty much the lifelong journey. There is no perhaps end to it. Yeah, and that humility only can help me learn and grow. I'm speaking for myself. Number two, ICF brought in coaching mindset 5 years back. In the latest set of competency framework, they have given little more information how to measure mindset. But we have grown up hearing that everything is in the mind, right? I mean, I've heard my bosses saying in the corporate that everything is in mind. It's all in the mindset. So we always knew that there's a lot more at the mindset level than it is about at a cognitive level or at a action level. So the first point is, even within the framework, there is something more to discover for us. That's the first point. And I discover them even when I mentor coaches and when some questions come up from the early stage coaches also on their certification journey. The second one is, what does it take me to embody the mindset? Now, embodying the mindset of a coach doesn't happen in the session. It doesn't happen in the coaching journey. It all happens outside the coaching journey. So how am I conducting myself at home, at work, in community will naturally have an impact on how I turn up as a coach. And if I think that I can sit on this chair and suddenly become that master coach that I think or assume I am, no, I think then I am living in a fool's paradise. Because everything that I do outside the coaching practice and framework, including at home, right, is what is nurturing my coaching mindset. Now, there is a specific reason, Dexter, that I emphasize, and thanks to you for bringing it up, that I am still a dog parent because I learned so much observing the pets because their unconditional love is something that we cannot match. Carnatic music, I'm still a student because I'm a bad bathroom singer. I'm a bathroom singer, but I'm even bad that I'm mindful of bathroom singing also, right? So, and it's a reality. People who know me know that, I'm just a bad singer, but I'm learning because it has helped me at different levels of my existence. And, thankfully, I am from South and Carnatic music, it's all mostly devotional songs, right? So anyway, you are singing the glory of the divine. But what I've discovered, and this is something I really want to leave the coaches here, that one, I just realized that I'm also training my voice, and I can see the difference. Some of my friends from college have highlighted this, saying that there is a shift in the tonality, which is very important in your coaching work, in your leadership work. We all are not blessed with an Amitabh Bachchan voice, but there is something about that Amitabh Bachchan voice in all of us. For that, the question to all of you is that, are you doing even voice training? Right? So the point is, the coaching mindset is also linked to not only the way we conduct ourselves, but even the finer elements of these competencies, which includes something as elementary as voice training, then deep listening, listening at the fourth level. You know, with my humble experience of mentoring coaches, we all are at a level 2 coach training that Otto Schammer speaks of. We are not even at level 3, we are not even empathetic. Because if you are truly empathetic, then we'll demonstrate the assumption that the client is complete. Now, if I don't carry the mindset that my coaching client is complete, irrespective of what your background experience, anything that the client comes in with, it will show up. So, to be truly embodying a coaching mindset of a coach is that I have that unlimited assumption that the client is beyond that, that the person who is sitting in front of me, much beyond that. And when that happens, and when I am able to operate from that energy and consciousness, magic happens. People say that one of my recent clients, I always love to share some examples. One of my recent clients, he said, it's a very flat organization, American organization, which no much scope to grow, in terms of, and this guy, 35, 36-year-old wants to grow in terms of the role also. Something happened, we don't know what happened. During the engagement, a role is created to his surprise, and he has been elevated. And it is beyond his logic, beyond the HR who is in touch with us, saying that how did this happen when we don't know, but we are happy for this leader, and he is delighted, super delighted. Because we just managed his retention better now, the HR lady said. So that is the power of the process when we embody coaching mindset. The last one, if I don't embody that mindset, the client will never be fully ready for the engagement. So the client, when you sign up, you are exploring the willingness of the client to be fully present and take action and be reflective. But if I am not demonstrating the mindset of a coach on an ongoing basis, this is beyond building trust. So I'm talking to senior coaches here. I'm not even talking about the basics of building trust, and earlier it was trust and intimacy. All that we'll anyway do. But if we don't demonstrate the mindset, which Dexter rightly asked, then we are not facilitating the client to move to the potential. We reduce it to, going back to the first point, or the first question, to the transactional coaching. So embodying coaching mindset is something that we are naturally doing pretty much every moment of life without the stress. It cannot be one more stress in life. But you are consciously signing up for that and then building that muscle. Then CC2 also speaks about, in the mindset, about tapping into intuition. We cannot tap into intuition unless we are able to tap into that mindset. We cannot tap into the intuition unless we are able to shut the noise within, not just in the head, in our body. The first speaker spoke about, it's also coaching from the brain. And naturally, you can't coach if you have not silenced the chatter. And one of my favorite quotes, which I derive a lot of inspiration from on coaching, is, it's in the depth of silence the voice of the divine can be heard. Beyond religion and faith, you can tap into intuition only if I am able to silence that chatter. And that is a demonstration of coaching mindset. And none of these are difficult. I mean, it's like building a muscle in the gym. But are we doing that? Because we are kind of reducing coaching to the level of transaction. Any follow up on that, Dexter?
Yep. In fact, I love the train of thought that you have, taken us through, because, we can move now from what you are saying to how could we demonstrate it actually, because we've been speaking since the morning about, mind, body, and spirit as dimensions of coaching mastery and holistic coaching, in particular, coaching the whole person. How would you say from your experience, Subhash, that these things show up in a typical coaching conversation? Is there some examples that you could share with us? How do these show up? How do we recognize, uh, you know, it in the coaching conversation?
So the first one is, all the three are equally important. It's not, it's like a three-leg stool. Without one, the other doesn't happen. So mind, how much ever we discount the power of mind, but there's also this masterpiece, The Power of Subconscious Mind, right? A popular book. So the mind, we have to tap into the power of the subconscious mind, not the cognitive mind, ego-based mind. And that can happen only when we are able to shut off that noise, as we said earlier. So the first one is to tap into the potential of that subconscious. The second one is about the body, right? Uh, you know, I don't think we are even aware of, with all the research on brain and heart and every other part of the body, we even know the power of the human body, or what is below the panchakoshas that we speak of, right? It's much deeper, the chakras and the energy centers. So I don't think we even have an idea with all the advancement of science. So we tap into that space. It helps us. Now, a quick example. I was talking to a client, a very good client, a lady client, and a normal conversation. Suddenly, I feel a slight tinge of pain on my this shoulder, right? And I didn't remember anything before that, so I was very aware that something has just come up, right? So thankfully, I was present enough to pick it up. So I took the permission of the client, CC 7.5, and I asked, there's something that I want to offer you. I just felt a tinge of pain here. Does it say anything for you? So she said, I've been carrying with a shoulder pain for a long time, which she had not shared with me.
My gosh.
That is the connect at the body to body level. right? So when we are connecting at a deeper subconscious mind or energy level, naturally we all are one. We all are together in this. There is no disparity of coach and the coachee. There are more commonalities there, right? So when the client brings something that is very emotional, we are training our coaches maintain that absolute neutrality. Be like a mirror. Only reflect. Don't be too disengaged or don't be too engaged. Don't be too appreciative. Only acknowledge. I mean, these are things that we teach. But the client says something. Do you have the freedom to tear up as a coach when somebody speaks about a loss? Right? I mean, even the most transactional engagement with the corporate leader, the leader will bring in an emotional topic, right? Can I be vulnerable enough, authentic enough to be who I am? The client may feel that, this guy seems to be more disturbed than me, but can I still hold that space for the client? And this has happened, right? I think that's where the deeper connections happen at a body to body level. Now, spirit is, for me, the higher consciousness. That the chakra, the highest chakra, if I have to borrow it from that space,
Crown chakra.
is where, yeah, Sasrara, right? That is something that you tap into by building the practice of pause. Again, recent bias, we just read this book, Tension to Transformation by Janet. That's why we hosted her also. She makes a very strong case for the power of pause. And if we just look around, especially our clients, we may be still better off as coaches. The clients are jumping from one meeting to the other, one action to the other action. If at all there is a space in time between, we just pick up the phone, right? That's what we are doing now, right? So we are continuously moving from one stress point to the other stress point or, distraction, if not tension. So do we have the awareness and the acceptance of the power of pause? And that can be as elementary as pause for a few rounds of deep breathing. I had to step out last 1 hour for a session, but I'm told that you even started the previous session with deep breathing. So, I've heard master coaches, some of the gurus in this space saying, do you have a practice of meditation in your day-to-day routine? Day-to-day routine. So that is a practice that brings in. Final point, example, I just met a corporate leader who's incidentally also going through a ACC journey. When she started the journey with us, she had just taken a short break because there was some medical emergency, and when she was coming out of it, she started ACC journey. She was guided by one of the coaches in Bangalore. And so when I met her, she has not finished her ACC, a senior tech leader handling international markets. She said, I have clarity that I'm not going back. Right? So then I asked, among multiple things that you would have discovered along this journey, that is, what is one thing that stands out for you? She said, reflective practice. She's a person who is already earning big fees even before getting an ACC because she has embraced reflective practice. I'm giving a real life example of a person who's found the magic of reflective practice. And I asked, how do you do that? She said, I have daily ritual of journaling, reflective journaling. That is something that we speak of in our programs to all our clients, but how many of us practice? Right? So practicing that reflective is definitely part of CC2. If you go back and check that video on CC2 by ICF, there's a very strong case made by the speaker, somebody from Europe, who says this practice has to be reflective. And that has to be demonstrated for the client. If I'm not reflective as a coach when I'm with my client, the client is intuitive enough to pick it up. Even a 2-year-old will hold the head and turn towards you if you're not listening. Right? The other person can pick up the energy. So, how do I manifest that becomes integral to coaching from that space of mastery. Back to you.
Wow, you've exactly said and explained the last slide that Nika put, the river that flows in you is the one that flows through me too. Uh, this is really profound, and I think this reflective practice. I think we are also getting caught up in the whole hustle and bustle and hurry of the client, isn't it? I mean, I think when we meet so many clients who are so pressed for time, so busy with their lives, there's a good chance that as coaches we also pick that up from the client instead of, because emotions are contagious, and uh, the problem is that we pick up the client's emotions. And I think this reflective practice which you're talking about will help us become a little more mindful about how we are reflecting back. Thank you for this answer that you've given us. um, I've got a
Just a
few.
follow-up,
Yeah,
Dexter.
yeah,
Sorry to
yeah,
interrupt.
please.
One word of caution is we have to be very mindful to pick up what does it take me to ensure that I don't take the client's emotions.
Yes.
Because the moment the client gets passed on to me even partly, then we are not coaching from a state of that neutrality, or from that state of whole person coaching. We have to be absolutely protective of ourselves, because unless we protect ourselves, we cannot protect or serve the client. Forget even protect, we cannot serve the client. So there are things, especially if the client is bringing some emotional things and that creates a trigger in us. We are after all human. We are coaches, but we are human. Second point, business uh, is the opposite of success as a coach. Yeah, early stage coaches. My friends here know I'm still busy, but year after year, I'm taking small steps, incremental steps to get off one treadmill and do something. But business is the opposite of success. And one of my favorite books on coaching, Prosperous Coach, he says one of the reasons why we should be coaching, or why we coach, not should be, is the lifestyle. So unless we are able to manage our calendar, from a busyness to more structured and more mindful and powered, we won't be serving our clients to the best. Another last point, again, CC2, embodying a coaching mindset, is about the preparation for the session. So if I'm jumping from one session to the other without that time for the pause, then I'm not ready for the session. Then the coaching will get reduced to a transaction coaching. We will not serve the client. So handling emotions of the client to handling business of our own practice, because we are coach, entrepreneurs and practitioners. And we might be doing some other stuff also. How do we bring the balance is something that we have to work. Yeah, back to you, sorry.
You reminded me of something that I had earlier on in my career. I come from a background of marketing and sales, international business, and I was leading exports for an engineering company in India. And I had a colleague who used to sit right next to me, and he was about a year senior to me, and he had this business of counting the number of letters or emails that he replied to. At the end of the day, he would announce, I have replied to 104 things today. How many have you replied to? And so I one day asked him, but I said, how much of business did you get? How many problems did you solve?
Very true.
So, in that, did you keep count of that, or you're just counting the number of papers you were shuffling? And I think as coaches, if we start shuffling our clients' papers, literally running with a bag from one client to the other, we're doing a business, but we're not helping coaching. So, thank you for bringing that up. Segueing into the next question is, thank you for helping us do that, is what parts of this whole person uh, needs coaching? I mean, you have the mind, body, spirit, but even the mind, there are so many elements of the mind. You have these, the executive prefrontal cortex, you have the limbic brain, which manages the emotions, you have how our actions are being regulated. So, is there something that we need to pay attention to in this?
See, I think it differs from person to person as a coach. So some of us are more tuned to the body-based coaching, which is perfectly fine. Some of us are able to go beyond that at a spirit level. I think that is also very good. Ultimately, we have our own strength. People say that some of us are better at listening, some are good at seeing. Right? There is a term also. Some can feel. For me, this was a feeling. Right? I'm not somebody is intuitive enough to think and come up with totally intuitive thought. So my first answer to your point is become aware of what is your core strength and strengthen that, whatever works for you, because that will serve the client better. And that is also for me in a way a variant of strength based coaching. You're not going trying to suppress something. And I don't use much of psychometric assessment. So I'm not going to go after psychometric assessment and become an expert and try to practice that. No, nor am I going to go after psychology, because I don't come from a psychology background. But there are other inherent strengths that I have, which I've seen working, and I keep deepening that practice. It is just about deepening that strength. So between mind, body, spirit, for me, if I have to technically answer that question, Dexter, it's my ability to operate at the confluence of all the three, because all these three will play an important, like if I am more a feeling person and the other my client is more a visual person, I can't stay on with my feeling approach. I still have to match the both. And the point is also coming from the fact that we are much bigger than who we are, aligned with that I said definition, maximizing potential, personal and professional, right? First personal. So we are still much bigger than that. So whatever practice it takes to strengthen my being, or that is what the other way of looking at it is the unconscious competence. For me, simple word is being, but most difficult to practice. Can I operate from that state of being, and what it takes me to arrive at that? So be aware of these three elements, but there is always something beyond. For me, hashtag word beyond. Right? Even if ICF brought in coaching mindset now, 5 years back, so they may bring up something after 5 years, but we should also be ahead of that at a deeper practice, right? So to that extent, we are able to keep looking what is beyond that, explore, validate, do some research, not depend totally on ICF or someone else. At the same time, build that our individual style of coaching. No, so what Dexter did not tell you, I think it's a good time to disclose that I'm also a certified healer. And I also, Dexter, like you, come from a basic sales and marketing background. So I'm not that high IQ, intelligent, brilliant guy. And you do 2 decades of car finance and truck finance and asset finance. You're not really doing some intellectual stuff at all. A lot of people say it is just common sense, which is very uncommon, right? So the point is still, deepening that presence. So I feel that I found my magic in my healing. So I do bring in an element. I don't compromise on the ethics of ICF, but I have built that muscle so that I feel I heal also my clients through coaching. Yeah, so I'm not giving one or the other to answer your question, Dexter. All matters. Pick up where you are strong at, but be so good at it that you stand out in the market.
Yeah, I think whole person coaching means
Is
you should
that?
also be a whole person.
Yeah.
Don't become just the ICF person or a
Yes.
psychometric person. I like
Yes.
what you said about psychometrics, because very often people confuse the person with the psychometric. They are far bigger than any psychometric. Psychometric opens a small window, and it should offer conversations just like what you are saying over here.
Yes.
And you've got to understand where the client is coming from to match which window they are looking through,
Yes.
not the window that you want to look through.
Yes.
So, if I may ask you a question that leads forward, where should we start if you want to be a coach who focuses on whole person coaching? I mean, where should we begin? What should be a way to begin? And is there something that you feel we tend to often miss out on?
So for me, the first is, and again, I say this with all humility and awareness that the point that I made in my opening comment, are we getting too focused on certifications and competencies? So that is for me the first one. Certification, again, at the cost of repetition, just a pit stop. So one thing is, unconscious incompetence. The certificate is at best a conscious competence. The magic of coaching lies in going beyond that, which is their unconscious competence. So I was asked recently at a similar session that then does every session need to come up with a magic? I said, why not? If the client is willing, then why not? But then client may be willing, unless I am also there to hold the space for the client, it's unlike that the client will get the magic. So the starting point is be diligent in the certification and credentialing journey. And after when you get the credential, then be aware that you've just cleared some basic requirements. I think more for the marketplace if you're working the corporate, because the corporate asks for certifications and credentials. But at a personal level, we are more aware of the area that I still need to work on. That is second step to answer your question. After the certification, I feel the conscious competence is in place. The CC3, the CC8, the exploration, and some of the basic structures. Then you start going deeper, right? And that is second step. For me, it is like meditation, right? Question to the audience, right? Please prepare please respond to the chat. We meditate over a long time. What do we achieve when we meditate for a long time? Just in the space of meditation. Just one word in the chat.
In the chat, yeah. Bringing back self.
Yeah.
Bringing back self-awareness, stillness, harmony, mindfulness.
Yeah.
Being present, silence.
And what does all this lead to? All answers are right.
Deep peace of mind, self-awareness. Where does this lead to?
All this, what is the final, what is beyond all this? Hashtag. Beyond silence, beyond state and presence. Yeah, happiness, yes. For me, Viktor Frankl famously said, if you chase happiness, you will not get it. So, the more meditators, when they meditate, it's about life. You are not mastering meditation. You are mastering life. So similarly, coaching, when we say reflective practice, it's like a meditative practice of coaching. I don't want to philosophize coaching. Coaching is, no, I don't want anyone to walk away with that as the outcome. No. But the point is, what will emerge by deeper practice, deeper reflective practice is still unknown to us. And no mentor, no supervisor, no expert can tell you what is, डर के आगे जीत नहीं है. There is something beyond that also.
Okay.
So that is something, if I am open to so I call it not even a coaching mindset. What inspires me is a miracle mindset or a magic mindset. Miracle also again has, but can I, yesterday I was in Mumbai, I was meeting L-1 of a fairly large organization. I saw first session after chemistry last month. I said magic mindset. I brought the word magic and he noted down on his thing, magic. Right? So can every session lead to that? So I have to operate from that position of vibrate at that frequency of magic for the client to experience that. So the mindset and what is beyond that is the lifelong journey of a coach, which goes way beyond certification, CCUs, and all the other stuff that we do as a coach.
Lovely.
If I can bring in one more small spin to this, right?
Yes.
Something that resonate for me, and Dexter, as a sales and marketing, you'll appreciate this. It's also attracting the right client. So in the space of your marketing, your coaching services, if you're a full-time coach and your bread and butter depends on coaching, what are you doing? What are you being, not just doing, being, to attract that right client into your business? Because Marshall Goldsmith I heard at the beginning of my coaching certification journey that, you get a bad client, get rid of them, right? Otherwise, they'll not spread the right word. Your profile gets diluted. Work with only successful people, he says. He says, I only work with successful people. So also relook at what am I doing also in the space of marketing. So I have a magic triangle of my coaching. The base triangle is the coaching skills, everything that we do and everything that we discuss today. But the other angle is your marketing, the base angle. But both these two are still coaching quotient and business quotient. But there is something beyond that. You can call it the process, the coaching process, or I also call it, somebody calls it adaptive quotient. For me personally, based on my values and my beliefs, for me it is my spiritual quotient. What is beyond the coaching competencies and the marketing quotient, what I can tap into. And that is much bigger than the coach and the coachees. The coach and coachee are at the base. The process is on top. And our journey is to move from the base triangle to the top triangle. And the more we are aligned with that journey, we will only get better. Like wine, they say, right? Yeah.
I love the way you brought this forward. In my experience in sales and marketing, for some time we were having very difficult clients. And even then, though I was not a coach, I was asking myself, why is it that we are attracting these people? What are we doing?
Correct.
And I found that we were being very combative ourselves. We were battling our clients instead of welcoming them or being grateful to them because we were trying to cover up for our own inadequacies, you see. So we were finding it very difficult to accept anything that the client was saying that would go into our inadequacies. We wanted to aggressively project our adequacies and force the client to operate in that. As a result of which, we were creating the opposite of what we really wanted to have because there was no gratitude and it was just
Well said,
absent. It
Dexter.
was just
Yeah.
absent.
Very well said. And I mean, I would even go one step further. A lot of coaches still carry the mindset that I don't want to do marketing. I'm not good in sales. You have been selling. There's this bestseller book that you're always selling, right? I don't remember the author's name. Daniel Pink says you've always been selling right from your childhood. So what is
Hmm.
this resistance to sell, right? And what does that show as a mindset?
Very
And that's
true.
the work we need to do.
Yes, every moment we live and breathe, we are selling something or the other, ourselves to
Exactly.
begin with, our point of view, our view of life, and what.
Exactly.
In fact, that's the reason I moved into teaching and things like that because I said I'm going to stop selling products. I want to start selling the future life. That's a
Very
much
beautiful.
nicer
Beautiful.
place to be. You have to be authentic there. You
Yes.
can't cover up and hope that the other person won't get affected. Wonderful. Just a couple of questions to, bring this to a head. Um, what really makes a difference finally when you shift your mindset uh, to embrace this whole business of whole person coaching? Well, you've said, of course, to be able to shift from the transactional to the transformative way. Is there something you can say to this?
So one, bringing down to real brass tacks, again going by that recent client example I mentioned earlier. This guy I always, all of us do that, I guess. Even corporate sponsored clients, I ask for one or two personal goals. Now, this guy in his mid 30s was a foodie and overweight, though he was in a BD role, business development role. So the personal goal he said was, I want to, gain some fitness and, I have to manage my health because he's also aspiring to become CXO of this US based company. So, in the first session itself, we covered little bit on that before going to the goal and even brought it back towards the end of the session. He says from that day, it's a 6 month engagement. Not a single day has gone without clocking 10,000 steps, he says. 10,000 steps every day, he says. For me, that Six Sigma compliance is the leader. So the answer to your first question is One, setting goals. Are we setting goals that is aligned with the purpose of that person? Are we setting goals beyond the comfort zone? Are we setting a goal that inspires the client? Borrowing from the definition from ICF. Are we inspiring the client to move towards the full potential? Right? So the first one is setting that goal. Second is the action orientation. Now, for me, this guy is going to create magic, even who is so committed to the action, right? Uh, of 10,000 steps. Imagine CC 8.4. Where else will you apply the learning of this in any other areas of life? He is going to do that himself, right? So that is second one. Number three, I mean, I always tell my clients as well as my coaches whom I mentor that every client engagement has to result in a deeper self-awareness. The client will use different synonyms for deep self-awareness, but the client will say, that I am making some changes. I had one of my not so successful client from Pune, right, and it did not even complete the all the 8 sessions. So when I went to Pune for the ICF conclave, I met him because otherwise all sessions were in virtual. So now I asked him, it's been 4 months now, less than 4 months, 4 sessions over. What are you experiencing? Right? He said, I'm more mindful. I'm more present. This guy is a senior leader. I'm in a tech industry. I'm more powerful. For me, that is self-awareness. So the pulse check of any engagement is that is the client moving towards some level of self-awareness. And that will come from goal and action. Yeah. Number three is the client discovering new elements of client's potential. See, I always give the example of that Amrit Manthan, just a metaphor as a tool, saying that what is emerging should surprise the client, of course, surprise us also. What is emerging? See, if you're not open to manifesting something out of the blue, right, in the program, in the conversation, or in the engagement, we are still at the basic level, transaction level. So something magical has to emerge along the journey for the client to really manifest something, and the client feels wow, right? And as I said earlier, if every session creates a wow, not necessary, because 8.5 I think is also what action and reflection, right? Kind of client also leaving to reflect is also a competency, sub-competency. So that also becomes important. Being an accountability partner becomes important, 8.6. Also, those of us who are in the corporate sector, right? This whole thing around, I don't have to be a subject matter expert to coach my client is fine, but it also helps you to gain some knowledge in their realm of work so that you can have an adult to adult conversation. Right? You don't have to ask if the client uses a word or a phrase, you don't have to ask what does it mean. If you don't know, you can ask. The process allows. But then have you done your basic work of doing your research, understanding the client's world?
Yeah.
In its limited way. So that's a commitment to the client. That's a commitment to the curiosity. So these are some of the things that have to be part of the daily thing. Last point, and I don't want to sound prescriptive here, not the gyan. I've had MCC fellow aspiring coaches, practicing for MCC, saying that, I just watch Friends serial and I lose track of time. I switch on Netflix, I lose track of time. My client, the same client, I asked him, quote unquote, I said, how do you unwind? How do you relax after a busy day? He said, I just keep scrolling. And for me, scrolling is opposite of relaxing, right? So, word of caution is managing screen time, right? I mean, that is something that we all need to be mindful because we are also setting an example for our client, for our family, and for our team, right? And that's a disaster in waiting, the screen time. I'm saying this more as a reminder for myself to take action also.
Yeah. Oh, nice to mention it. I think in the world we're living in today, this is great advice. Absolutely, yeah, because it's so easy to get hooked on. We didn't have this happen when we were growing up as children.
Absolutely.
We had much more wholesome activities actually
Absolutely.
to be dealing with, including family time. I remember there was always a fixed time to have dinner together, sit at the table, or be together. It's just
Play
exploded today.
together,
Yeah,
right?
today it doesn't happen. I mean, everyone's doing their own thing. Uh, so we are leading such fragmented lives. How do we expect to do wholesome coaching? If
So,
we,
Dexter, if it's not a too big a statement, sometimes I feel I am leading a transactional life. Can I do transformational coaching if I am living a transactional life? No. And that is the personal challenge I am facing, right? And some of my friends are on the call. They know.
how
That's a
would
work.
you, yeah, how would you sum this up, Subhash? We've had these very insightful, which you made so light, but they're so deep. How would you kind of sum this topic up if we had to leave it here for the time being?
Yeah, I would, with the permission of the group here, something I had fascinating discovery in my healing journey was I always thought the soul resides within our body. But I'm certified in basic and advanced in two methodologies. There, I discovered, or that the soul resides outside the body. I challenged my mentor, so I said, no, I don't think so. So the mentor actually helped me see that in one of the participants. We were made to stand apart some 10 feet, and the mentor guided me. So I'm leaving this metaphor. Forget about the details of the story. We are much bigger than who we are in flesh and blood. And that is potential that ICF speaks of.
Mm.
Number two, we are all in work in progress. Each one of us have, I kind of depend on my Carnatic music, yoga, journaling, and, even my mentoring. Some of my best learning opportunities happens and I'm training and mentoring my coaches, right? So find that sweet spot which helps you grow as a coach. You can't be a great coach unless you're reflective in your practice, unless you find time to deepen your, the spiritual quotient, meditation, any kriya, anything that you're doing. That, the breathing exercise, anything that you're doing. Last point, don't chase certifications. Certifications can only take us to a certain extent.
Mm.
Transactional coaching will be supported by certifications and all credentials. Transformational coaching is hashtag beyond,
Mm.
and it is very individual for all of us. The last point is we all are on our hero's journey, Joseph Campbell,
Mm.
at certain way, and it's a blessing that we are coaches. I'm hoping most of us here are coaches. It's a blessing that we are coaches. We have a responsibility to coaching. We cannot dilute it with a jugaad mentality or anything. We need to, our legacy as a coach, my legacy as a coach is what I am doing to enhance the practice of coaching in this part of the world. Now, why do you have to depend eternally on something that is in Western import? We have it in our culture. Let both of them come together, Western and Eastern thought process. And we have a responsibility. That's what Prosperous Coach talks about. Every one of us has to be a thought leader in our niche. And that also will define how successful we are a coach. Business has to reduce incrementally wherever we are, right? And that is true success of coaching. That is true. Otherwise, we could have survived and, Dexter could have continued sales and marketing. I could have continued selling loans. No, we are here for a purpose. Because only if you resonate with that vibration of the purpose in that consciousness, we'll partner with the client to vibrate at that level. Because we can only give what we have.
Yeah.
And that is something that we have to commit to ourselves. Yeah.
Thank you.
Again, everything is reflection on me. I'm not sitting here and giving gyan and this thing. My friends here know that I'm trying to do a lot of this stuff myself. Yeah, but so it comes with all the humility and openness. Yeah, back to.
Thank you so much. Wow, that river has really flowed from you to us. And we're so grateful for this. Thank you very, very much. I don't know where the time has gone. I'm looking at my watch and I'm saying, wow, did the time really pass? And we'd love to thank you again and have you again. It's such a blessing. I love this, what you said. It's a blessing to be a coach, and we have the responsibility as coaches to, you know, help the world
Yes. Heal the
move
world,
from
help the world.
transaction to transformation.
Very true.
We should do that first within ourselves, and then we
Yes.
can, you, as you said, you can only offer what you have.
Very true.
So thank you for that and for offering us what you have, which is such a lot. Uh, you are like one very deep river flowing, not just a pool. And we love you for having shared this with us.
Thank you very much.
Like Sandeep, to say thanks to you, and then we have a small certificate of appreciation to offer you.
Thank you. Thank you. Big thanks to the chapter for the opportunity.
Our pleasure and privilege. Sandeep, yeah.
Thank you, Subhash, for that deeply reflective and thought-provoking conversation.
Thank you.
Spoke of the real depth. We would like to uh, more water to flow towards us and would keep this interaction alive. Your insights on the inner compass remind us that coaching is not just about navigating goals and unless we ourselves are transformational, that hashtag beyond will not actually happen. So the values, beliefs, and purpose that guide them as whole human being can only make us better coaches.
Very
This
true.
dialogue has reinforced that whole person coaching is about trust, presence, and creating space. And for that, we need to quieten the chatter and the tools which we have given for meditating, for attaining that happiness to be able to do that. So, a heartfelt thanks once again, Subhash, for helping us all pause, reflect, and recenter on what truly matters in our work as coaches. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
may I now ask Nandini to, yeah,
Thank you.
thank you so much, Subhash. We look forward to having you again.
Thank you.
Thank
Looking
you very
forward to.
much. Thank you so much. We'll be sending this as an electronic
Sure.
version to you. And thank you again. Thank you again for this wonderful,
Thank you,
wonderful.
everyone who stayed on and creating the energy for me to share. Absolutely grateful.
I don't think anybody would want to leave. So
So
we've
time
really
for
been
body lunch. Yeah.
riveted to you and what you're saying. So Sandeep, you have another guest
Yeah,
with
we
us.
have after these three wonderful sessions, we have Dr. Jeffrey Hill as the showstopper. May I, Jeff?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon and good morning to you. From
Yes. Can you see
thanks,
me and hear
thanks
me?
for joining. I hope you remember me, Jeff. I met you at the Pune Conclave. Listened to your keynote address
I
and
remember.
tried to steal every moment during the break to connect with you and also took that autograph book of Flex from you. And it's been a year that we have been trying to uh, get you to ICF Mumbai chart chapter, and with every moment spent with you was so cherishable. Uh, so, a brief introduction while he doesn't need one. Our next speaker is an accomplished author, passionate educator, and one of the most sought after consultant, Dr. Jeffrey Hull, PhD, board certified coach, is CEO of Leadership Inc., a leadership development consultancy based in New York City and Amsterdam. He is today joining us from Amsterdam. Named by Thinkers 50 as one of the 50 best coaches in the world in 2024. He's also the best selling author of Flex, The Art and Science of Leadership in a Changing World, and The Science of Leadership 9 Ways to Expand Your Impact. A highly sought after coach with over 25 years experience. Dr. Hull is the executive director at the Institute of Coaching, the Harvard Medical School affiliate, and a clinical instructor in psychology at Harvard Medical School. He was recently named by Thinkers 50 as a top 8 finalist for the Coaching and Mentoring Award of 2025. We are honored to have Dr. Jeffrey Hull deliver this masterclass on the science of leadership, how to coach leaders to expand their impact. So get ready to gain powerful insights and practical strategies to elevate your leadership coaching and maximize your influence. Welcome, Dr. Jeffrey Hull.
Wow. Thank you so much for that very, very kind introduction. And I guess it's good afternoon to everyone. And I was able to join the last part of your recent session with Subash, and it was really powerful. I'm glad I was able to listen in and sort of get the sense of the energy of this wonderful group. And I want to thank you, Sandeep, for inviting me to be with everyone today. I have fond memories of my visits to both New Delhi and to Pune, where I had the opportunity to be live in the room with over 600 coaches from ICF and all from all around India. And it's always just such a pleasure. You folks are just incredibly impressive and doing amazing things to help the world at a time when I think the world is in need of coaching more than ever before. So I am honored to be here. I want to spend the next, I guess we have about an hour together, and I want to share some slides. Let me see if this will work. You can tell me. All right, so let's jump in. I had some thinking about the way I'd like to do this presentation. And what I'm going to ask is that as I go through the presentation, we'll use the chat box because I'd love to have you all be doing some self-reflection along the way. I know that the fundamental theme of this conference is holistic coaching. And so, and as I was listening to the last session, you did a lot of discussion around mind, body, spirit, and sort of the interconnection, the integration to lead to wholeness in your coaching with people. And so the next period of time we're going to spend together is going to be maybe a little bit more mental in its approach because it's going to be research focused. But I want you to be thinking about how these themes apply with your clients on all levels. And we'll talk about that hopefully in the chat and in our dialogue, because even though when you think about science, it is a research oriented, somebody says they can't see the slides. Tarun's, am I doing something that I need to change?
It was earlier.
I think
Now,
that was earlier, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just looking at the chat and seeing that. Sorry about that. I get caught up on my chat box. So as I was saying, I am going to talk a little bit about the most recent research into leadership, which is the theme of my most recent book, co-authored with my colleague Margaret Moore, who is, along with me, one of the leaders of the Institute of Coaching. And the focus of our book is trying to bring the latest research into how to be an effective leader out of the academic context and into the practical world of coaching. And the reason that Margaret and I wanted to do this is that we're very aware, and I'm sure many of you are leadership coaches, and we're very aware that there's a lot of really good research that is being done all over the world, including in India, on leadership and what makes for effective leadership in today's world. But very few of us, even as coaches or leaders, have time to read the journals and be up to date on the actual literature on leadership competency. And so what we did is try to summarize some of the most recent leadership research and actually go back and do a survey of leadership that goes back, leadership research that goes back as far as 40 years, and basically pull out the key themes and then reflect as coaches on how that translates into the current world of our practices with leaders. And from that, we designed in our book a leadership journey, basically a learning journey, because it's very difficult, as you can imagine, to wake up one day and have all the capacities of leadership that are available through all this research. But if you think about leadership, and in fact, the journey of a coach is not that different, as a lifelong learning journey, then your goal is to help your clients and even help yourself integrate the best science over the long term, over a process of lifelong learning. So I want you to keep that in mind as I go through these capacities, or what we're calling capabilities, competencies, or capacities in the most effective leaders in today's world. And think about yourself, and think about your own practice, and think about your clients and how this can be applied. And we'll talk about the way that this can be brought into a holistic approach. So just want to frame that as my way of bringing in this theme of holistic learning for leaders. So this is a quick summary of why Margaret and I thought this was a topic that was incredibly relevant for today's world. And you can read these 3 key themes that we kept in mind as we wrote the book. But I'm going to add something to this, which is, you're probably all very aware of the fact that artificial intelligence is becoming ubiquitous in our space. It's becoming ubiquitous in the world, and it's very clear it's going to have a huge impact. It's already starting to have a huge impact on coaching and in our world, the work environment that we're in, regardless of whether it's coaching or anything else. And I can't help but think that one of the things we have to be concerned about is, what is our role going to be as AI becomes more and more a tool that we use as coaches, or something that's integrated into the practice of our clients. And from that standpoint, when you think of the third part of this slide, our goal is to improve impact, to help leaders move toward a holistic approach by knowing what to improve and how. It seems to me that it's going to be really, really crucial for us as coaches to elevate our own capabilities, know the science, and see ourselves on a learning journey so that we can continuously improve to be role models for our clients. Basically, if I have to be blunt, so that we can avoid the possibility of being replaced by artificial intelligence. We want to deepen the key elements of humanity in our coaching and on our leaders. And we're going to need to do that by developing these leadership capacities in ourselves and in our clients. So I want to just keep that in mind as we go through and be thinking about that. What we did, as I note in the first part of this slide, is we took, as I said earlier, about 40 years of research, and we summarized it. We read hundreds of articles. We looked at meta-analysis. And our goal was to try to pull out the key themes and make it accessible and digestible, so that if you use this book, The Science of Leadership, which should be available through Amazon or any other any other place that you folks find your books, it has stories, it has a summary of the science, but probably for us as coaches, most importantly, it has practices around what we can use with our clients to help them elevate these key capacities in 9 areas. And I'm going to quickly walk through these, and then I'm going to ask you to think about these for yourself, because as we talked about in all the sessions today, it's really important that we role model these capacities as coaches. And also, I think many of you as coaches are also leaders, whether you're running a coach school or you're running an organizational department within a corporation, or you're doing coaching as part of an HR function in organizations. We have to see ourselves as leaders as much as we work with clients that are leaders. So this is all relevant for us as individuals. So what Margaret and I did is we took all the research, which you can imagine is huge, and we pulled out, as I said earlier, what we considered to be the key themes. And then we put them into a framework that we thought would be most applicable to the journey that we take with our leaders. And so this list is really, it's put on a slide that is looks a little bit hierarchical on a slide like this, but it's actually really more of a learning journey, and I would say it's more horizontal or even circular. And we'll talk about how that might work. But very briefly, it starts with conscious leadership, which I think you will all resonate with, because so much of what's been discussed already today is about seeing clearly, being objective about ourselves, being holistic in the way we view ourselves and our role. And that's the ground, right, from which coaching and leadership development emerges. And then secondly, a topic that many of you have heard about, authentic leadership, starts to move into the reflection around what we most care about. And we'll talk about how that shows up in the research. And then you move into what I wrote about in my last book, Flex, and talked about when I was in India last year. The art and science of leadership in a changing world requires us to develop agility, the ability to be flexible, change up our style as the context changes. And then we move into relational leadership, which certainly isn't a new topic for anyone, but there's different components that the science has focused on, but they're all related to what we called helping. So you're moving into the construct away from just yourself as agile and authentic and conscious into the construct of helping others. And we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. And then when you think about the energy, and there's been a lot of discussion already today around the energetic or the somatic or the physical component of coaching, it starts with being positive. And the question becomes, where does positivity come from? And what are the components of it? And we summarize it as strengthening yourself, strengthening others. And then you move into compassionate leadership, which is really an expansion of your role as having an impact in the outer world, right? And we're going to talk about the levels at which we operate as leaders and as coaches. And then finally, the 3 shared, servant, and transformational are the most sophisticated and the most studied in the science aspects of leadership. And we're going to talk about each of those in a little bit more detail. But sharing leadership, serving others, and transforming, they all have one major theme in common, and that is the shift from individual-focused leadership to we-focused leadership, from I to we. We're going to talk a little bit about what that means and how the science has articulated that. So if you think about the broader context of 9 capacities and what you want to help develop within yourself and within your clients, you can see very quickly, and this became very clear to Margaret and me as we stepped back and looked at the framing of these 9 capacities, that they actually lend themselves to a 3-tiered approach, which is you start with yourself, you then frame this shift into the outer world because you're dealing with impact and relationships and organizations, and then ultimately you're looking at how you can have a downstream impact on the entire system. And this is really important because in today's world, as we know, just working within the context of serving one person as a client-coach dynamic, although incredibly important, is only the starting point. Really what we want to have is an impact on a much larger scale. We want to start to have the ripple effect of impacting the entire system in which we're a part. And the good news is that the science, and I think I talked about this before in some of my other talks, has demonstrated that when there's a positive impact between one duo or one couple with a client, one coach and one client, the science has demonstrated that the ripple effect of that impact is immense. There is what's called a systems network analysis that was done by a colleague of mine. He calls it the triple effect of coaching. And it demonstrates that when you do effective coaching with a single individual, there is a ripple effect that at least touches the 3rd level from that individual and improves the entire context. So moving out into the system is actually not as complex as it sounds. We are actually impacting the system every day. So I want to start by walking through these real quickly with you. And here's a description of number 1, conscious leadership. And there are 3 core elements to conscious leadership. And some of this will resonate with you from the presentations because I think conscious leadership is the ground from which the sense of being and the sense of self-awareness and the sense of presence emerges. And I know that you've already, in holistic discussions earlier today, you've already been discussing this. So the science that goes into conscious leadership includes everything on this slide: emotional intelligence, self-awareness, regulating the self, mindfulness, which I know you've been discussing, the leadership shadow. I'm going to skip quiet ego for a second. The leadership shadow, which is looking at the blind spots with your clients. What's being left out of the conversation? Are they overcompensating or are they undercompensating for ways of being? Do they do something too often or not often enough? And are they integrating those blind spots through the work with a coach, or through the work with someone that's being supportive to bring those into consciousness? Are they working with those shadows to turn them into opportunities? And then finally, we'll shift back to quiet ego. Quiet ego is a recent area of study for researchers, but basically it involves becoming stable within yourself, present, objective, and in a sense, not giving up on the ego. You don't dissolve the ego, but what you do is you quiet the ego. You turn down the noise. You turn down the distractions. And I noticed in the last session that that was one of the core principles that Subash brought up in his discussion, was putting down the phone, looking at your habits in terms of distractions and so on. And that creates a sense of presence. And that's where the inner wisdom starts to emerge. So these are some of the core principles that are studied in what is called conscious leadership. And I want you to just take a minute before I go on to the next one and ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being a very highly conscious coach, where would you put yourself? Let's see some numbers in the chat. Thanks, Sanjeev, taking the risk. He's a 4. Who's next? Put some numbers in the chat. 6. Sandeep, 4. 5. 3. Yeah, I sometimes see myself more in a 3 to 4. 5, 6. Great. So ask yourself, why not 10? Why not 9? What can you do to step further into being conscious? What are you doing to get feedback? Are you even aware of your shadows? Something to reflect on. This is the mantra that Margaret and I use with our clients that relates to everything you've talked about already today. Quieting your ego is your path to leading better. Exactly, Prasad, reflective practice. Stepping back, taking time, becoming present. Thank you. So be thinking about that. I love that. Awareness of shadows doesn't mean I work on them. Absolutely true. But it is the first step. You need to become aware of your blind spots or what you overdo or underdo, and then ask for support. And we'll talk about that. Secondly, authentic leadership. Here's where we start to think about our values. Do you live by your highest values? Are you genuine and sincere? What is the balance between your concern for yourself and your concern for others? The research shows that character and values are really key to being authentic and to having the kind of impact with others that leaders need to bring around positive outcomes. They need to be conscious of what is the core meaning and purpose of what they do in the world. And the research shows that there's a difference between just being authentic yourself and being authentic good for others. And this is an important distinction. I like to share this quote from the research. Being authentic is good for you as a leader, but being authentically good is for followers and the organization is about alignment. So be thinking about this when you work with clients, that the key thing about authentic leadership is to align the values that you bring into your leadership or your coaching with the alignment of others. It's only through the alignment of the two that you actually move positively toward high performance. If there's a lack of alignment, then you may be highly authentic as a leader, but you're not necessarily going to have the kind of impact that you'll have if you're aligning your own leaders with others, your own values with others, which means that you need to discover what are the values of others. So you need to be open as a leader and as a coach to exploring not just your own values, but the values of others. So ask yourself about this one. On a scale of 1 to 10, where do you place yourself? 10 being someone who's highly authentic and aware of how your values are reflected in alignment with others. A few numbers from folks. 8.5, great. So someone, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it, Anuradha. Yeah, you're starting to see that you explore your values, but you also look to align those with others. 7's great. So be thinking about If you're a 7 or an 8, that means you spend a lot of your energy reflecting on your values. You're aware of your values. You're aware of your strengths. But what would it take to get to 10? So think about that. There are steps you can take to even get more aligned with others. So now let's talk about agility. Agility is really important in today's context because things are constantly changing, right? So the elements of leadership agility and agility for coaches are openness and curiosity. And I think most of the coaches that I work with are naturally curious. It's what leads us to being a coach. But do you embrace opposites? Are you even aware of the polarities? Do you ask yourself, what is the opposite of what I'm thinking? What is the opposite of the story I'm telling? And do you appreciate the opposites? When you were looking at our book around agility, agile leadership, these are the science areas that we focused on. Psychological flexibility, which means being able to pivot your mindset from very directive to very inclusive, like listening to where others are coming from and then incorporating that into your own mindset. Being able to solve conflicts in a way that demonstrates curiosity and creativity. I was working with a client just yesterday who struggles with that he doesn't really like conflict because it makes him feel like he's not liked. He really cares about being liked by his people. And we had a reframe conversation because I pointed out to him that conflict is actually something that leads to creativity. And if you're looking for creativity, he's the CEO, he's trying to be entrepreneurial, then maybe you need to become more comfortable with conflict. And it really stopped him in his tracks. And he thought to himself, oh, you mean I need to not be so afraid to have things not go exactly the way I want them to? And I said, yeah, maybe it's the other way around. Maybe sometimes the conflict breeds possibility. And this basically stopped my client in his tracks. And so I had him do a little exercise, which was to put a touchstone, like a little symbol, a sticky note actually for him on his computer that said, conflict leads to creativity. This is the kind of flexibility, psychological flexibility that we want to develop in ourselves and in others. They're almost like bringing to the front the oppositions that we all deal with every day. And cultural diversity comes into this list too. Like looking at your stories that we carry about others, whether they're geographic, racial, cultural, nationalistic, countries, languages. What kinds of stories do we tell ourselves about other people? I was recently on a program with an amazing coach, Nankande is her name, from Zambia. And she was explaining to me the difference between high context cultures and low context cultures. And it was such a wake-up call for me, thinking that since I'm from the West, in the United States, we're very, very low context, as many of you know. And Asian cultures are very, very high context. And most African cultures are very high context. Lots of different background things are going on that impact people that are never spoken. So becoming aware of those diverse ways of being in the world is a really important element of agility. So again, put yourself on the slide. Where do you see yourself? 1 to 10. Becoming more agile leads to greater creativity. Let's have a few numbers from folks. Are you a 10? Do we have a 10 for agile? Ah, 5s and 6s. Okay. So we'll think about what is one thing you could do to develop more greater flexibility. Now we move into relational. So when you work with clients, the important thing that they're going to do when they move from their own personal development around consciousness and agility and authenticity is to start to think about how they relate to others. And you can look at this list: social intelligence, empathy, listening, trust, forgiveness, psychological safety, helping. These are all related to coaching skills, right? Focusing on others, developing your empathy, learning to listen, being able to forgive. That's a really challenging subject, and something that the researchers have looked deeply into: the ability of a leader to forgive others for mistakes. This is a relatively new area in research. But those leaders that are able to let things go when they don't go well and not blame have a really positive impact. People want to follow that kind of leader. And also developing a support context. So that's what we do as coaches, look to support others. But when you're working with your clients, do you actually investigate how do they support their people? How do they listen? How do they attend to relationships? How do they build trust? Those are all key components of relational leadership. So again, ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how high do you place relationships? I would imagine that as coaches, we should see lots of 9s and lots of 10s in this domain. Thank you, Nidhi, for being a 9.5. 8, Sanjeev, excellent. I mean, it's good to stop and reflect on yourself, because as coaches, we probably are very high on the scale of 1 to 10 for relationships. But if you look at this list of the science around social intelligence and listening and forgiveness and creating psychological safety, you have to ask yourself, what are you doing as a coach to create this context with your clients? I'm going to move quickly because I want to have some time for questions. So moving on to positive. Obviously, once you've started to focus on developing relationships, coaching, mentoring, advising, listening, then you have to start to think about the energy that goes into that, right? And the energy that we all know works is positive energy, creating an essence of well-being that creates a focus on self-efficacy, leading your clients and yourselves to have a sense of motivation and agency and hope, creating an environment that's meaningful and hopeful. And some of you, in fact, most of you may be familiar with self-determination theory, which is one of the best studied areas of motivation. And the 3 domains of self-determination theory are really key in bringing this sense of positivity to your clients, developing competence and looking at what are the strengths of myself and my clients and how do I expand those? And what is their relatedness? How do they relate to others? How is the sense of belonging and connectivity cultivated with your clients? And then finally, autonomy. You cannot have motivated people in your organization as a leader or even in your life if you believe you're motivating them. This is really crucial. We don't motivate other people. Other people motivate themselves. Motivation is an intrinsic activity. It has to be generated from within. What we do as coaches and what good leaders do in a positive context is they create an environment for someone to be motivated to evolve themselves. So how do we do that? How do we create that context so that someone feels a sense of agency? These are really powerful questions for you to ask yourself. And are you leveraging these? So when you ask yourself a scale of 1 to 10, as a coach, are you leveraging these elements that science has demonstrated are key to effectiveness? So put a few numbers of your thoughts about yourself as a positive coach, a positive leader. 7, 8, 6. Great. And keep in mind that there's a misnomer that we use, which is that humans are human capital. And this is a mistake. And any leader that tells you that humans are capital is going to put themselves out of a job, because human capital is really going to translate quickly into artificial intelligence capital. So what's really important to keep in mind is that humans have capital. We are a resource for capital. What about compassion? How do you step into this capacity to be a compassionate leadership, compassionate leader? The key here is, to my mind, studies that take empathy to another level of what we call resonance. And resonance is about not just having empathy for the person sitting across from you or being aware of how someone else is feeling, but actually thinking about the entire context. And we're going to see that when we move into the next level, we're talking about the system, the organization impact. And so resonant leaders, compassionate leaders, are thinking about and feeling how the environment they're creating cultivates awareness of pain, of suffering, of the impact that human beings are having on each other. The bigger picture, right? So think about the relational climate that your clients and you are creating. This is a relatively new area for study in leadership, but it's really powerful because it takes this idea of like one-on-one empathy, awareness of what's going on with the others, into a broader context. Thank you, Sajeev. This is a tough one for us. Rating yourself a 3 is humble and human. And I also have to do work in this area of compassionate leadership. But the hearts of high-performing resonant organizations are the most aligned. And what we're going to see as we move from resonant into shared and servant leadership is things like humility and service and being more of a we-focused leader become really crucial to this idea of shared servant and systemic leadership. So we move into the broader systemic context, and we move into shared leadership. And the key here is disseminating the entire context to others. I versus we. Are you actually empowering others to lead? Or are we just developing one individual who will be the director, who will be the person in charge? That's not shared leadership. It's not distributed, and it's under leveraging the power of the group, of the whole. So this is a really important shift into a very sophisticated way of seeing leadership, which is sharing your capabilities with others and modeling rather than just doing. So think about how you're doing this with yourself and with your clients. And this is an important component of shared leadership that you might want to share with your leadership clients, which is sometimes it's very lonely at the top. And yet, if you have a mindset towards sharing and distributing leadership, it actually lightens your load because it becomes leading for all of us. And thank you, Anuradha, for putting sharing is not being weak. I really, really love that statement. Sharing is actually a strength. And if you're going to move into this distributed sharing mindset as a leader, it would be really powerful to actually articulate that out loud, to say to your colleagues, I want to share this responsibility because we are all in this together. So think about how you frame that within your own coaching or within your work with your clients. And that's a natural segue into servant leadership, right? Many of us are familiar with this idea of servant leadership, but do our clients embody it? Leadership that is servant-oriented is leading from behind. So it's almost stepping further into sharing so that you actually fall into the background as a leader and allow others to step up. And what's really crucial in this domain is the study of humility. Humility is challenging. Vulnerability and humility is challenging for all of us. It's challenging for me. It's challenging probably for many of us as coaches. But it's actually been demonstrated to be a core element of wisdom, to recognize that you don't have all the answers, to be willing to share that with your client, or to ask them to share that vulnerability with others. It's actually a strength. And I think it's summarized in this statement. If you can be in a position of giving without expecting anything in return, you'll get more. And yes, Anuradha, I think it is quite challenging to make these shifts visible in our clients. And what we have to do is think about examples. We have to think about places in our own lives and in the lives of our friends, our family, our colleagues, where being vulnerable, being humble has actually led to a powerful outcome. Because that's actually creating the context for transformation, which is the next level and the ultimate level that you want to go on the journey of learning as a leader towards being a transformational leader, towards being a role model, towards being inspirational, towards being visionary, towards seeing creativity as your job in life to create an environment, foster an environment for others to be curious, open, and inspirational, to invite them to look at the barriers to their own courage and taking risks. So think about how that shows up in your life, transforming yourself, transforming others, making the kinds of shifts in the way you operate in your life that translate into self-transformation. And what I love about this, as we get to this sort of penultimate framing of systemic leadership and even systemic coaching, is that it circles all the way back to consciousness. So if I had a slide that would probably be more realistic around the way these 9 work through a journey, you would see that it goes from transformational leadership back to conscious leadership, because that's where it all starts. So I want to just leave you and move into some questions, if we have time, with how to use this. So let's say you get a copy of this book and you're looking through some of the coaching studies and you see there is an assessment you can share in the book for clients' readiness, motivation to work on these 9 capacities. These are the ways that we recommend using this with your clients. Choose one of those 9 capacities that may be either a strength that your client wants to improve, or could be an area that they're like, oh my God, I never even thought about being a servant leader, or I haven't really thought about consciousness. Like, what does that mean? And think about how they can dial that particular capacity up minute by minute. And then another option would be to go through all 9 and think of one step a client could take in each of the 9. Give them that homework. Give yourself that homework. Give them some time. Over the next couple of weeks, let's do one thing in each of those 9 buckets. What are you willing to commit to do? What is it going to look like? Come back and share with me. Be willing to be vulnerable. And finally, if you have a client who's super excited and super motivated and their numbers were relatively high on their self-assessment, have them work on all of them, all at once. It is possible. And have them then come back to you and say to you, wow, these actually all integrate into a whole. And that gets to the theme of this entire conference, which is wholeness. It's not about one. It's not about being authentic, being conscious, being a servant. It's about integrating all of those. And ultimately, we need to be part of the symphony. We need to make the music together with our clients to create the future together. And so I'll leave you with this metaphor of thinking of yourself as the conductor of a symphony. There's a role for us as humans that cannot be replaced by artificial intelligence. Maybe a lot of the instruments will be played by AI, but we as humans will be the penultimate leaders. I truly believe that. So with that, I'm going to stop because I want to leave a few minutes. I don't know, Sandeep, how many minutes do we have left to take some questions?
We have some time to take questions, but let me make a mention that you've not changed. You've only improved for better since the last time I heard you. Whatever you bring forth has always been very insightful. It's not about only explaining the 9 ways to expand the impact, but also the element and science of it so that we can track it and also improve upon it. And that how can the shift take place? I like all these pieces as you traveled from conscious to transformational, and there's a lot of inner work which is required to be done, which we all know. But the scaling is very important for us to be able to identify and improve upon this. I like the concluding part, play a symphony, not a solo. And that is what we've been also talking about collaboration with 12 chapters to bring in newer awakenings and awareness. And that's why we waited for almost a year to get your time to create this difference. And Dexter, I would like you to add to it. You are on mute. You are still on mute.
So, yeah, I think this is a beautiful way because we've had so much going on about mind, body, and spirit since the morning. And I thought these 9 ways, there was so much clarity and flow in it. And that's what I admire most about those 9 ways. I mean, I'm no one to review a book by Dr. Jeffrey Hull, but I think it put things so much into alignment and perspective, and beautiful way to end. And I like the fact that you took every one of those 9 ways and explained it to us with the elements and what it takes and where would we score ourselves. Little embarrassing to score ourselves on some of them, but I think it's a good reality check for us to be a little more authentic to ourselves so that we know, how much of the road we need to travel more on. Thank you for sharing this kind of wisdom with us all the way. I know how difficult it is for you to have made this time in your schedule for us, but I'm so glad that you did. And thank you again for everything. Yeah.
And there's so much flowing in the chat box, and each of these resonate at various levels and is applicable in any role, whether it's a leader or a coach. Thank you. Some great practical ways to self-reflect. Very insightful. I have used the instrument with some of my senior clients and have found them useful. Amitabh Sinha. So and so on and so forth. And if there are any questions, we can take a couple, Dexter. We can take a few.
I think we should open out for at least a couple.
Yeah, I'd love to take a couple questions if we have time. I don't know exactly your time limit, so you tell me.
Yeah, I think we've got about 5 minutes.
5 minutes we have.
That should take a couple of
Okay.
questions, I think.
I have a question, if I may.
Yeah. Can you?
So, may I?
It's Dr. Urvi.
Yeah, right. That's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Dexter. Dr. Hall, that was one of the most profound presentations, and personally, I have so much to learn. What personally resonated with me the most is the point of compassionate leadership, and it immediately took me to vulnerability as soon as you spoke about strengths. And my question is, how do we as leaders not just reflect upon our narratives that we bring into our workplace in terms of vulnerability, as Professor Brené Brown puts it as rumbles, but how do we actually translate these into shared narratives? Because as you pointed out, it should be a shared, and it could be a space of shared leadership, but then everyone comes along and profits from our insights. So yeah, I mean, in short, how do we actually, because you also spoke about systemic barriers or factors that contribute to this. So the question that arises for me is, are workspaces psychologically really safe? I mean, in terms of psychological safety, can someone be actually vulnerable as a leader? And then, of course, moving on to the next step of transforming those narratives into shared vulnerability. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really challenging area for leaders to be vulnerable, but it's also incredibly powerful because if you bring your own humanity into the context, that actually creates psychological safety. It's almost a paradox. And sharing that with your client can be an eye-opening movement toward agility, right? Psychological flexibility. So the example that I give to my clients is to ask them, when have you ever brought a story of your own personal pain into your work environment? It doesn't have to be huge, like it doesn't have to be life-threatening, but what could you share that would bring a different level of humanity into the context that you would feel safe? And so as a leader, if you feel safe sharing something vulnerable, that creates a space of energy for others to be able to let down their hair and perhaps to feel a little bit safer about bringing their humanity into the space. So I think it does take courage, but it's an important inflection point. And that's why, as a coach, it's good to be aware of the distinction between empathy and compassion. And the simplest, I mean, it's a complex subject, but the simplest way to identify the distinction is with human pain. If you're able to access and articulate a simple example of when life has been painful for you, like when you were a kid on the schoolyard, or when you did something wrong, when you were a child or a student or in college, you don't have to psychoanalyze it. It's not therapy. It's just being human. And then share the mistake or the painful experience as a learning opportunity. And if you do that as a leader, there will be an incredible shift in the energy because people will see you as a real person, not as someone who's trying to be perfect, not as someone who's sort of lording themselves over others. And that's how you create psychological safety. So I'll leave it at that, but I think you get the basic idea.
Yes, yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Dr. Hall.
Yeah, so we can take one more question from Anuradha. Yeah, please.
Hi, Dr. Hall. I think it was brilliant. I think I was really mesmerized. I think the important part was that it not only the model that you demonstrated didn't only apply to the client, but it applies to self first. And my question flows from there. This model, it talks very beautifully about the what of the different components. But does your book also illustrate the how do you do this with the self and clients? Because I think that's where the biggest challenge lies.
Yes, thank you for the question. And the answer is absolutely. There are practices that you can do as a coach or practices that you can do with your clients on every single one of the 9. And I'll just give you a quick example so you'll know at least the kind of thing I'm talking about because it already came up in the earlier session. And that is that one of the most powerful little practices that you can incorporate, and this is described in detail in the book, with a client around conscious leadership, which is the ground upon which all of the others are built, is by incorporating what I call buffer zones, which is another way of calling it a pause.
Mm.
But a buffer zone is an empty space between doing, where you practice being. And this is a really powerful little tool for clients to use. It emerged from a client engagement I had where, and I know you've all had these, where I had a client who was running from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. He was constantly looking at his phone. He was constantly texting. And then he finally got feedback that he was distracted, that he was coming across as aloof, that he was being a little bit arrogant. And those are the shadows, right? We talked about blind spots, being aloof, being distracted, being a bit cocky, like you don't pay attention. You're busy in your last meeting, so you're not present in the current meeting. Well, for him, a very simple practice changed everything. And that was I asked him if he would consider putting a 3-minute buffer zone where he would stop doing everything for 3 minutes in between each meeting. And at first he was like, what am I going to do for 3 minutes? I said, well, you might just breathe. You might just go for a short walk. You might just go outdoors and get some fresh air and actually feel the wind in your body. It'll change everything about the way your presence will be the next meeting. So that example is in the book. There are many, many practices. I just wanted to use that one because it absolutely resonates with a lot of what you've talked about earlier today. So I hope that you'll maybe get a copy of the book, reach out to me if you'd like to talk about it more. But yeah, absolutely. We do need ways to support our clients to do practical activities to elevate these capacities. Thank you for the
Thank you
question.
so much. Thank you. Thanks.
So thank you, Dr. Hull, for a very enlightening and powerful session. And we are going with newer awareness about how to expand the impact. And you maybe have created more converts to read your books.
Hopefully it's
I'll now
helpful.
request our president of our chapter, Sanjeev Bhatia, to present this certificate of appreciation to you. Sanjeev?
Yes, Dr. Jeffrey, I think it's an honor for us to present you the small certificate. It carries not just the name of yours, it carries our love and affection, our respect for your research, your sharing, every bit of it. In fact, the whole session I was reflecting, what am I doing? And believe me, a lot of takeaways. Um, and it's not only for the coaches, somebody said that it's true, it's for the leaders, because when I started my career long back, and I was mesmerized with seniors, especially the managing director, that how the person was been switching the role, being attending some aggrieved family, then coming and talking to union, and then inaugurating some function and everything. That used to mesmerize me. But later on, I myself got into the global role, and I realized that how much it is important to switch on and switch off. And it takes a lot of effort initially, because I was not having that practice, and I was being always into constant mode of thinking, if I'm down, I will be down. I was not even getting ready for the next event, which was important. And yes, switch on, switch off is the one which you just talked about, 3 minutes buffer. Um, I think somewhat, not exactly this, but somewhat I was trying to go for a walk, quick coffee, or go to somebody's room and bump, say, I want to chat something and want to listen if you have something to share as a global HR head. So we are talking about, I used to do that, but unconsciously, and you are making it very formal, and I loved it. Um, Sharing, expansion with the sharing and transformation. Any transformation we talk about has to start with us. I think I have a long way to go. I'm going to learn and practice quite a lot from your book. I have not heard of this before, or maybe I have not bumped across this kind of work. But for sure, like me, many others will do that. I'm very thankful to you to share, and would like to know more of your work. If you happen to do that, please share with our team. I'm thankful to the team who really uh, search into deep sea of all those people, the intelligent people, the great researchers, and they could find the gold like you. We're thankful to Sandeep and Dexter. We're thankful to all the participants who maintain, and they had the urge to know more. And in spite of being Saturday, which is for many of them is off, they took out time from the family and they've been here. I'm sure there have been all the speakers who've been they have a pull factor, and that is why they're here. Thank you everyone for attending. And personally, very thankful to my managing committee who has been doing a lot of work, and they really surprised me quite at times when really I don't know how come they do it so much of work. And I'm enjoying my work. Hope to enjoy more in future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjeev, for the encouraging remarks. And Jeff, our request and offer to host you whenever you are in India still stands. And please give us a heads up. It'll be a pleasure and privilege to have you over.
I
And you
look
will
forward to
enjoy
it.
this confluence of very mindful senior coaches in ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter.
we need a final photograph, Sandeep.
Yeah, and the link of the book, maybe some people have asked, so maybe if there is any link, you can share, Jeff, here. Otherwise, they will just pick it up from the slides if that is allowed to be shared amongst the participants.
Probably the best thing to do would be to go to the website. I can put that
Okay,
in.
fine. I think enough has been said for the day, and thanks also given by none other than the president. And it may be time to thank all the audience who connected from various parts of the world and the speakers who have shared their wisdom. And every member and the MC member of the chapter, especially the people who keep working behind the scene, especially our director, communication, Aniket, who has always supported, and without his support, it was not possible to create so much of difference and impact in all our Beyond Series events. Thanks a lot to all the participants, and thanks for joining on a Saturday and spending one full half day with us, more than half day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye. And good day. Have a lovely weekend.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.
Thank-
Thank you.